I'm Ed Poole.
And I'm Susan Poole, and this is Louisiana Film History Flashback.
In this episode, we want to take a look at a film that has become a legend about the beginning of the Cajun culture in Louisiana, which is hard to imagine because the Cajun French-speaking culture has been officially recognized as Acadiana by the state and covers 22 of Louisiana's 64 parishes.
To see where it starts, we have to travel way up north to Canada and way back in time to 1755, when the British came to Nova Scotia and confronted the French settlers called Acadians. When they wouldn't fight the French in what is called the French and Indian War, they were deported from Nova Scotia.
More than 11,000 men, women, and children were forced aboard ships at gunpoint and sent to various locations in the American colonies, to England, or France.
Approximately 3,000 of those Acadians, now called Cajuns, made their way to South Louisiana, where the Spanish were looking for Catholic settlers to tame the wild bayou country.
Their culture fit in perfectly in the backwaters and sparsely inhabited swamps. French-Canadian trappers, many of whom had married Native Americans, had already established small settlements there.
While very little is recorded about the early days of the mass evacuation and resettlement to Louisiana, the most prominent legend of this was recorded in the way of a poem.
So let's flash back to the 1929 film Evangeline. In 1840, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow invited a few friends to dinner, including writer Nathaniel Hawthorne and Reverend Horace Connolly. Connolly related a tale he was told by a French-Canadian woman about an Acadian couple separated on their wedding day by the British expulsion of the French-speaking inhabitants of Nova Scotia. The bride-to-be wandered for years trying to find her fiancé. Connolly wanted Hawthorne to turn the story into a novel, but Hawthorne wasn't interested. Instead, following extensive research into the plight of the Acadian people, Longfellow turned the tale into his first epic poem, Evangeline, A Tale of Acadie. Published in 1847, the poem became a huge success, with 6 printings in the first 6 months of being published. Within 10 years, it had been translated into dozens of languages. The story has been made into motion pictures a number of times through the years. In 1908 by Calum, in 1913 by Canadian Bioscope of Halifax, and in 1919 by 20th Century Fox. The most popular screen version of this haunting love story was released in 1929 by United Artists. In this adaptation, Evangeline, daughter of Benedict, prepares for her marriage to Gabriel. War breaks out in their Acadian village, and Evangeline and Gabriel are separated, and they're placed on ships going in opposite directions. Years pass, and Evangeline finds her way to southern Louisiana, reuniting with many of the Acadians who had made this area their new home. Upon her arrival, she learns that Gabriel had just left in search of her. She continues to search for Gabriel, but to no avail. Evangeline eventually joins the Sisters of Mercy and goes to help the wounded soldiers. There she finds Gabriel, torn by years of searching for her. Evangeline is played by Mexican actress Dolores Del Rio. Del Rio was considered the first major female Latin American crossover star in Hollywood, having an extremely successful career in American cinema in the 1920s and 1930s. Roland Drew starred as Gabriel. Drew had a number of prominent film roles from the 1920s through the 1940s, including the 1928 film Ramona, in which he also co-starred with Del Rio. Supporting cast included Alec Francis, Donald Reed, Paul McAllister, James Marcus, George Marion, and Bobby Mack. Evangeline was directed by Edwin Carew, a Native American director, actor, producer, and screenwriter. Years earlier, he had discovered Del Rio in Mexico. With the studios introducing synchronized sound, United Artists released 2 versions of Evangeline. One version was silent, while a second version released music, sound effects, and 1 line of dialogue on a videophone disc. In the sound version, Del Rio, the first screen star to register her voice on the phonograph and over the radio, sings 3 songs. The theme song, Evangeline, was written by Al Jolson and Billy Rose. The other two songs were sung in French, also making her the first performer in an American film to sing in a foreign language. While California filled in for Nova Scotia, Carew felt that the only place to film the Louisiana scenes was on location in Evangeline country. In an article written by Dolores Del Rio and published in the New Orleans Times-Picayune, Miss Del Rio stated,
"When Mr. Carew told me we were to make certain scenes for Evangeline in the Evangeline country of Louisiana, I was thrilled, to say the least. Likewise, my curiosity was aroused when I was told that the Louisiana scenery could never be duplicated in California, because in the movie studio and in our great state it is possible to duplicate just about every location one can imagine. I have traveled extensively ever since a child, and I am frank to say I have seen no such distinctive locale as the Teche country."
Approximately 5,000 locals greeted Del Rio and Carew when they arrived by train on March 3, 1929. Del Rio was presented a large bouquet of flowers by Miss Myrtle Wheel, acting as an Acadian girl in full costume. Scenes were filmed in and around St. Martinville, including Avery Island, Catahoula Lake, and Bayou Teche. A typical Acadian dwelling, characteristic of the early Teche period, was erected on the banks of Avery Island. A large number of locals, including young boys and girls, were used in the film. The Frederick Hotel in New Iberia served as the film's headquarters. Evangeline premiered at the Sanger in New Orleans on June 14, 1929. More than 4,000 people attended the premiere, with thousands unable to get in. They gathered outside the Sanger Theater to catch a glimpse of the Mexican star, who arrived headed by a detachment of mounted police. Miss Del Rio left a lasting impression on the St. Martinville by contributing to a fund to restore the burial place where the real Evangeline was supposed to be buried. A statue of Evangeline, posed for by Miss Del Rio, was donated to the town by the film's cast and crew, and is a popular tourist attraction in Louisiana. This has been a presentation of Hollywood on the Bayou, preserving Louisiana's rich film history with books, prints, presentations, and exhibits. If you have questions, comments, or to learn more, you can visit our Facebook page or sign up for our Louisiana in Film newsletter, which is on our website, HollywoodOnTheBayou.com. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Louisiana Film History Flashback. Sue and I thank you, and we'll see you next time.